agree that Twitter is our safe place for thirsting and being horny on main, even though like what Twitter has become, who runs all this stuff, it is still our safe place for being horny.
Yeah, because they won't let us have Tumblr anymore. So
that was the dumbest thing, and that's still been a thing for years.
Stupid.
I mean,
so
we clearly did not fight hard enough for that because it held out. Like, come on, guys.
Oh my gosh.
It held out far too much. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the nerdy neighborhood. Our crystal clean, very shiny and bright, family friendly show, obviously. Welcome back. I'm Lauren, your friendly neighborhood bi, and back and joining us with a new project is Al Davidson. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. See, now we gotta switch from joking about being horny on main all the time on Twitter to, hi, I'm a normal person. What's up?
It's like we're going from Twitter to Instagram. We have to put on the clean image.
That's a great comparison.
Platforms.
That's a great comparison. Yeah. That's why I don't vibe with Instagram. It's too pretty and perfect. Like, that's not me. Clearly.
I have ended up on frog Instagram, and I'm just being inundated with videos of frogs. I don't like frogs. I've never interacted with frogs, but they're just everywhere now. And so every time I turn around, it's just like, oh, look at the cute little frog doing cute little things. It's like, okay.
I was gonna say that's the weird thing about social media too. You get thrown just into like random niches. Like I know on TikTok, like every once in a while I like a video that's a certain type of funny, and then after a while, like I start getting more and more videos in that kind of niche, but they're way too extreme for me. But the algorithm thinks I want that, so then I see them, I'm like, oh god! I'm like, no, why is it showing me this? I'm like, oh my god, it's because I like that one video that made one sex joke. Why?
Yeah, I ended up on mullet hillbilly rockabilly lesbian TikTok. And it was just like the flannel vests with like the cut off like fringed sleeves and mullets and lots of leather boots, and I don't know how to get out. I don't know how I got there. I don't know how I get out. I'm just like,
now you're stuck. You can't escape if you try, because even if you swipe past all the videos, they keep coming.
Yep.
That's absolutely terrifying. Unlike your story that you're actually here to talk about today. It's a new short story of yours. So those of you that don't know, Al was on the show a while ago talking about another story called what was I'm gonna say it wrong, Wayward Souls, and there's another part to that, but I have to say not Sons, because I called it Wayward Sons probably more times than I should have. And
it's that Kansas song. It's Supernatural has just woven itself so into everyone's psyche that we just can't.
Well, and it doesn't help that I was born in Kansas too, so even though I didn't live there most of my life, like it's still in my DNA, unfortunately. Damn it, Kansas.
I was literally in Lawrence a couple of days ago. Like I was in the Supernatural, like that's where we are. It's just you can't escape Kansas.
Can't escape it. Nope. See, that's the thing. People make all the like, there's no place like home. And it's like, even in my own home, it comes and finds me.
Yep.
You're right. There's no place like home because Kansas follows you.
It does. You can't escape it.
You can't do it.
It's called Heartland for a reason. It's no matter where you go, it's always right there in the middle.
It's true. It is absolutely terrifying. But again, unlike R-PUNZEL, which this is actually a family-friendly story, so please forgive us. We are being obnoxious as usual, but this is a family-friendly story. It's a nice adventure tale. Obviously, this definitely references Rapunzel, so it seems like this is kind of a twist on it. Tell us what this is about, because it's like, Rapunzel, but robotic?
Yeah, so again, I love sci-fi. That's what I do. I am a Trekkie. I love my spaceships. And I saw a prompt for like, hey, take a classic fairy tale and rewrite it with a sci-fi setting. And my favorite fairy tale is Beauty and the Beast. That was like, I'm going to do that one. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, but what if you put the tower on Mars? And I think it was because I was working on The Wayward Souls of Avalon, which the whole point of that web novel is them traversing across the galaxy, getting to Mars. So my brain was kind of in that like headspace of like, Mars is a cool setting. And then I was like, well, let's just see what would happen if I decide to like rewrite Rapunzel and do something different, because it's one of those when you have fairy tales that the iterations tend to be very copy and paste. Like even the big Beauty and the Beast thing that they did on Disney for the anniversary was basically the exact same thing. And so I'm like, but I want to do something different. And so that's why R-PUNZEL ended up coming out, where I'm like, I don't want her to be a cute, pretty lady. I want her to be a robot.
I love that. I love that. Disney robots time.
Yep.
Except it's Al's robots. Just fuck off, Disney.
It's fine.
It should be. Absolutely. And one thing I really love about this too is that, you know, you've got R-PUNZEL, you know, essentially the robot, and then you've also got a male character, and then you've got an NB character, non-binary character, which is really cool. That's kind of the foundation of a love story in there, rather than having, you know, one person to save R-PUNZEL, and then it's like, look, we have a robot and a human in love, or we have two robots, like, who knows? Like, so what kind of made you still want to do the twist on Rapunzel, but you also twisted it even further, like you said, not as much copy and paste, with, you know, saying R-PUNZEL is not part of the love, you know, the love interest, the love story there.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the thing where I was like, well, I want to like subvert the expectations of what everyone thinks, because it's always that whole like you have either a prince or a thief or somebody climbing the tower, and it's like love at first sight. And I'm like, but I don't want to do like the weird robot thing. And I was like, what if I gave the, you know, our lovely thief, whose name is Bandit in the story, what if I gave him a partner in crime? And kind of made that the center of the love story by having, you know, almost two people scaling the tower, and just make Rapunzel almost the catalyst for their narrative instead of making her part of the narrative.
Yeah, and I love that twist, because it's something I would have never expected or thought to do, because kind of like you said, we take these very famous, especially love stories, and we are like, well, let's just, you know, switch to two characters in somewhere, what have you, but you completely flipped it on its head. So, you know, if she's the catalyst, you know, then what really made you want her to be the catalyst, rather than she's just kind of there to accelerate their plot, and then you bring in some other, you know, element?
Yeah, I think it was just one of those that, because initially, again, I was going to do a Beauty and the Beast type of thing, and I was kind of thinking, oh, well, what if I did the Beast as kind of like this big mechanical or like alien type of thing, and then had the Rose be this kind of like igniting thing that kind of like set the story in motion. I was like, well, what if since I then started thinking about the Rapunzel option, I was like, well, what if I made her this very sought after thing? Because that's the thing about Rapunzel, is that she's this kind of like sought after, protected thing in all of these narratives. And I was like, I want her to still have that level of like importance, but I don't want the story to be specifically around her, because the whole thing was subverting expectations. Is like, I didn't want the protagonist to be straight. I didn't want the, you know, setting to be all very fun and bright and colorful, because a lot of times you see the tower and it's painted and it's beautiful, and I'm like, I want it dark and I want it full of technology. And I just kind of wanted to like basically take the skeleton of the story and just give it a whole new skin. And
yeah,
it was fun.
So if there are Mars, you know, essentially scaling this tower to find R-PUNZEL, the robot, then what's the whole point of them going out of all their way on Mars to climb this giant tower just to get to this robot?
The same reason we all do everything that we do in life: money.
Makes complete sense. We're all broke ass bitches.
Right, exactly. And even my characters, they can't catch a break. But it's, you know, I just figured that'd be kind of like the cool, because a lot of them is, you know, you have most of the classic Rapunzel fairy tale is the guy who climbs the tower is a prince. He's well off. He has the things he does. But that was the one thing that I really liked about Disney's version, was like, oh, he's just a nobody. He's this, you know, nobody thief who's just out to steal, you know, and get some money. And I was like, that's kind of a cool concept. I wanted to do kind of like that. I love heist movies. Like, I like Ocean's 11 and I like things like that. And I was like, let's turn it into a heist situation where he has to climb this tower to go get this tech that he doesn't know what it is, so he can get a big payout. Because why else would you be risking your life going and breaking into a military cash tower on Mars? Yeah.
And obviously, you're not going to do that for love or anything. Obviously, it's money. That's all.
Right. Yeah, it's like I needed to have the big stakes, which then also, because that was the other thing. Is when I first came up with the thought, it's like, I want the tower, and I want a big murder bot. I want a big murder robot. And I was like, so I needed to have some sort of like value added to the, you know, robot that they needed to go get, because I wanted a murder bot and it has to have something to protect. And so it's like, then you keep adding to those stakes and the value of the of the payout at the end.
Yeah. So how did you, come up with the characters, our two main, heist buddies, for lack of a better way, our partners in crime? How'd you come up with, what they wanted their personalities to be? Because I feel like that's a fun thing in writing too, is that especially when you create love interests, you get to decide what that dynamic is, what that romantic dynamic is, and how it looks.
Yeah, I am a big fan of the trope of the big, well-meaning, dumb himbo and his totally over it, please stop talking, even though I love you, like intelligent, like counterpart. And so that was cool fun because I figured since we're following Bandit through most of the story, since he's the one who's climbing the tower, I wanted him to be very quippy and very kind of snarky and extroverted. And so to be able to have that kind of voice of reason in his head, because most of the time when Ratchet is in the scenario, they're talking through, the communications and via radio and things like that. So I wanted him to have some sort of guiding, hey, we need to actually do this. You need to pay attention to what you're doing. Stop being so kind of thing. And that's where Ratchet comes in, is they're just very level-headed and very collected and I have to work, so I need you to stop talking kind of dynamic. So that's my favorite. I love it.
Yeah, I feel like any opposites attract kind of dynamic works very well when it's written well. Yeah. Because I feel like, there are people, especially when they're early to write or what have you, that they're like, oh yeah, I can just do this and this dynamic, for example, the golden retriever and the black cat dynamic, which I love those dynamics. Yeah. But sometimes people, because they're like, oh, that's so simple and easy, and it's there's so much intricacies and nuances, little ones that you embed in the characters' personalities and stuff that make those tropes so fun. Yes. And when you forget those, or you kind of over exaggerate, these other ones that are pretty insignificant, that you kind of ruin the trope almost. But I am happy to say that you do none of that. You completely hit it on the nail. It is just such a good time to read, and it makes me love the trope even more, because I don't get to read those tropes a lot with the ships I read. I don't get that all the time, so I'm pleasantly thrilled, because every once in a while I get that in a couple of my ships, but they don't make enough fanfics, so I need to let those ships know, please write more fanfics with that trope. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the thing, is my biggest project is that 8-novel space opera that I've been working on for. It's actually coming up on 3 years. I started on the 27th of March of 2020. So, and it's still in progress. But that was 2 of the characters have that kind of same similar dynamic. So I've had 3 years and 1.5 million words worth of practice writing those 2 characters. That becomes a very natural dynamic for me. But then it's also you have to have, like you said, those intricacies and those little personality ticks and more to the character other than he's just a dumb himbo that is well-meaning, and they're super intelligent. There's more to their personalities that even if it doesn't get put on paper, so long as you have it in your head as you're writing it, you can kind of start to change the way that the narrative is written and the conversations are written to really make those kind of tropes stand out. And I think it's a great trope. It's so fun. It's so classic, and it's just a great time. I really like these characters a lot.
There's a reason we have the classics, right? And there are classics that hold up very well, that stay tried and true. And because they stay tried and true because you can modernize them. And tropes like that, you can modernize with how society changes and what we see as acceptable and not, and what we like. You can modify that. So that's a great classic. I'm so glad you enjoyed it as well. I wanted to pull up this cover that you sent to me. This is such a cool cover. It really leans into the heist stuff that you're talking about. We've talked a lot about the 2 protagonists and kind of love interest stuff there, but this is also just an adventure. It's a fucking heist adventure.
Yeah, it's a great cover. Jack is phenomenal. I literally sent him the story and I said, just have free reign, do whatever speaks to you. And then he came back with this, and I was like, I can't, because has such a mastery of color, and that was one of the things that was really important. I was like, you're on Mars and it's dark because you're inside of a tower, and so I need the reds to really be a prominent thing, and I didn't tell him that. This was all him, so he just kind of caught on to that. But it's just, I love how it just it captures that kind of intensity, kind of the dark interior of it, and we don't know what's gonna at the top, we don't know what's below him. It's a phenomenal cover. It is. it.
I completely agree. And I really like you said, the color tones are great because you can look at this and be like, wow, it's just red and black and green. Who cares? But like just the difference in the shades of red, especially like, you know, kind of going along the lower part there in the middle, you got those like almost orangey reds, but then the rest of it is very maroon. So like there's some kind of light stuff in there, whether that's lava or something. I have no idea. But I think it's cool. And I love how the greens match each other. Like it's again, very simple stuff that is so easy to miss. And you know, the simple stuff is often the most important stuff. So I hate overlooking that stuff because it's like, dang, if Jack had not said, let me make those greens match, this cover would look completely different.
Yeah, because the greens pop and the rim lighting coming off of the visor on Bandit's suit, it's so eye-catching. And that's one of our stretch goals in the campaign, is to actually get this on a bookmark. And I really hope we hit it because I really want to see these, because it's going to have him like climbing up the side of the bookmark and it's going to look so cool. So excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I am too. Tell us a bit more about the other awards, because obviously like Kickstarter, there's so many things that go into it. There's reasons why you do it and things like that. But of course, what people want the most are the pretty, shiny rewards.
Yep. I mean, I didn't do any like stretch goals for my last one, which was my first Kickstarter for my lovely Minotaur fun time story. But so this one, I was like, I have such, you know, cool art, and my younger sister, Maggie, actually did a really incredible robotic flower illustration to match what is on Rapunzel's chest plate in the story. And so the next stretch goal after the bookmarks is to get those printed out into stickers. So it has little robotic flowers, and so I'm super excited about that. She's super excited about it because she's never been asked to do this sort of stuff, and it's a really cool looking like flower. And actually, the way that she sent it to me, I was not expecting what she sent back, and it actually changed a portion of the story. So the story that you read is actually now been shifted to match the illustration that she's done. It was cool. I was like blown away by it. And so that like I'm actually gonna like premiere that. That's actually in the campaign page. So people are actually gonna see that when the campaign drops. And then the last stretch goal is the because I don't know how to stop and I have to balance 7,000 projects at a time. The Beauty and the Beast idea that I have, I'm going to, if we hit the certain last amount for that stretch goal, is I'm going to post the first like 3 pages of the Beauty and the Beast story that actually takes place about a couple of weeks after R-PUNZEL ends in the same universe. And I'm going to post that as a kind of like a free open thing on my Patreon for people who have back to go read to kind of see what kind of comes next for this universe of like futuristic fairy tales that I have somehow made a cinematic universe without actually meaning to.
That's awesome though. And I love that like it's in the same universe and things like that, because it's very easy to say, oh yeah, well, you know, it's a couple weeks after, but it's a different universe. So it's really cool that it sounds natural to you as well. Like I think that's nice to hear. So many people nowadays, especially with the MCU and even the DC stuff and all that, everybody's trying to make a big interwoven multiversal universe, but it's really cool to just hear someone like you that's just like, I just did it, and like I'm having fun, and I don't know how I did it, but hopefully y'all enjoy it. So it's really nice to just hear that natural excitement about it. Yeah,
and the more that I've like kind of like started to develop that, the more again it's going to be like fully subverted expectations of the things that you think are going to happen in it, and the way the characters are, you're used to them playing out, is absolutely not going to play out at all in, you know, the stereotypical way that we see the Beauty and the Beast stories come through. So I'm super excited about that, and just have like little references to like the heist being whispered throughout the universe of the things that Panda and Ratchet did, and the aftermath of what they did and how it starts to impact other things. So I'm super excited about it. Hopefully we get to hit that stretch goal, because that story's probably gonna come out either which way, but it'd be cool to like be able to drop that teaser and get people excited about it while I'm kind of like in the process of figuring out how to find the funds to self-publish that. Printing is so expensive.
It is, you know, and that's the tough thing too. So many things that are creative that we love, like they're often the most expensive things to get done.
Yeah, I was trying to look at stuff for self-publishing my first novella over the summer, and my normal printer, who I love, Ken, is phenomenal. Ken does amazing work. It's $1,400 for 100 books.
Wow.
I'm
That's
like,
ridiculous. That's
that's
crazy.
so expensive. I was like, that is so
Mhm.
expensive. So to be able to get enough to actually make it worthwhile, I'm like looking at like a several $1,000 campaign when my cover art is only like $250 and my editing is only gonna be like $300. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. So it's like these Kickstarter campaigns and crowdfunding things and, you know, Patreon support is like, we wouldn't be able to do it without it. And so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's why a lot of this stuff has like, you know, Kickstarters and things like that have really become as big and as often as they are, especially for comics and books, like literature, because like you said, it's mostly the printing costs.
Yeah. Well, even
like
board games.
Yeah. Well, because you're printing that too, and then you gotta use other materials for that.
So yeah,
I can't imagine how expensive those are to print. Like, dear God.
I don't even want to know.
And then when you count like the games that like have those really fancy figurines, you know, and like the paintable ones, that's a whole other beast to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some really pretty like tarot decks, and they're like upwards of like $60 to get the physical copy because it just costs so much to do all of the ink and the cutting and the making of the box and everything like that. And so, but it's, you know, it's cool to see things like Kickstarter and, you know, Indiegogo and stuff like that, to see the amount of money that those things can raise because people are into it, and, you know, knowing that, you know, smaller creators have the ability to do those sorts of things. And nowadays with social media and being horny on Maine on Twitter, and it'll get you far.
It's how we cope. It's how we cope with the printing costs.
It's a yes.
No one can fault us anymore. Just say the printing costs. This is why. And the people go, we understand. Please continue.
Yep. We got you.
Even if we're not into it, we understand. We'll just mute you. We won't block you this time. I wanted to go back to your cover artist, Jack, you know, who did the cover for R-PUNZEL, because you said this to me and I thought it was really cool. So he has a webcomic called Bicycle Boy. Tell us about this.
The amount of times that I have spent like hijacking conversations to talk about Bicycle Boy. I literally, to tell you how much I love Bicycle Boy, I have a custom commissioned portrait of the main character, Poet, who's the one with the cape and that, tattooed on my leg.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it's a full-on portrait of Poet tattooed on my leg. Like, I love this series, and Jack has been doing it for like 8-9 years at this point. It's all free to read. And it is just about this poor amnesiac cyborg who wakes up in the middle of the desert surrounded by corpses, and he steals a bicycle and just starts pedaling off into the wilderness. And it's just kind of about, you know, the unfolding of who he is and how he came to be, and the strange world after it's like a post like nuclear war type of situation. It's very Mad Max, but it's like chill Mad Max. It's like
chill Mad Max.
It's like chill Max. Like, but it's phenomenal, and I highly suggest it because again, you've got 8 years worth of content to go read, and it's all free. And of course, he has a Patreon, which, you know, you get exclusive like behind the scenes stuff to watch, and which is incredible to watch him do his line work and his coloring. It's just I recommend it to everyone. I was on another podcast talking about what's your favorite webcomic, and immediately I was like, it's Bicycle Boy.
I was gonna say, if you have a tattoo like on your leg of the main character, that's pretty. That's a big selling point for me. Like, you've got to love this series people do that. And like, I mean, I can already tell just looking at this, like you said, the line work. I mean, this is a level of realism you don't often get anymore.
Yeah, it's so detailed, and that was one of the reasons why I'm like, I approached Jack to do the cover for this. Is I'm like, it has that like technological side of it, but the line work and the coloring is just so appealing. And there's just the way that he just does color, it just blows me away. Some of them, like I think it's chapter 5 has this one like party scene, and everything is just like saturated in purples, and it's just the most beautiful series of panels you'll ever see. And I am fully responsible for the fact that the first volume of this had a Kickstarter and made it to print. Jack did tell me that was my fault that it was made it to Kickstarter. So yeah, it's just I cannot recommend it enough. It's so good. I think I read the first 4.5 chapters in one sitting when I first found it, and I just like sat there. I got to the end. I'm like, I need more.
I love that. And like you said, there's 8 years worth of content on here. So anybody that's like, gosh, I'll get really into it, but they'll be gone. That's not happening anytime soon. So
No.
there you go. You got some place to go, which is great. And I'll make sure the link for this is in the description along with the Kickstarter link and all that. So you guys will be able to just do a couple clicks and find some great content, and also be able to, get some great content, back some great content. Because your Kickstarter is live March 19th and it goes for a month, April 19th about?
Yeah, about that time, yeah. Well, it depends on whenever Kickstarter decides to cap off the end time. So
that's fair, because you can put it up like March 19th, but super late. So then it's like, actually, you'll go till April 20th at 9 p.m. EST, and you're like, but I'm CST. What the heck?
Yeah, that's the way of Prodigals and Pomegranates did. It ended, I think, at like 10:30 at night. So I just had to sit there and watch the timer count down. I'm like, I didn't set it up that way. It just did it. So
yeah, there. Well, I know that like people typically, I see more often than not, like do the Kickstarter like launch parties. But then like I know people like often, like you said, they're saying they're watching that timer and be like, oh my god. Like, even if they've been funded and everything, they're still watching it. Like, how many more backers?
Yeah.
Are we getting that last stretch goal or not?
Yeah. It is a fun, chaotic experience. It's one of those that is like, you're very stressed out and you feel like you tweet the same things over and over and over again. And it's hard to be clever having to tweet so many times during the span of a month. But it's fun. It's fun to watch the engagement and the numbers go up. And, when you finally hit that, like, oh, we were funded thing, it's like, when did that happen? Because I was at work. So
that's kind of nice thing, honestly, about like having work outside of it, I think, because more often than not, like it's really tough, like doing your other job, like outside the creative stuff you love. But I think having other separate things to do during like times like running a Kickstarter campaign are actually pretty healthy, because it forces you to not hyperfixate on it and drive yourself completely insane. Like you get a little bereaved, then once you're done, you're like, okay, I'm back to hell. Check the campaign, please. Let's be funded.
Yeah, I have learned that I need to turn the notification banner off on my phone for Kickstarter, because I was backing several things while I was running my last Kickstarter. So anytime I'd see something, I'd be like, oh, I got someone new backing it. And I was like, no, it's just an update from something else that I backed. So I'm like, I just need to turn the banner notifications off. So I'm not sitting there every time I seeing it, like stressing myself out when I get a new notification.
Yeah, actually, when COVID like shut everything down in 2020, I muted like all my social media notifications, like at that point, because I was one of those people that's like, man, I need to keep them so I don't miss things. But I was like, I'm gonna check in when I need to. And if somebody really needs me, they have my email or they have my number. Like, like people could get in contact with me outside of it if I don't respond and they really need me. So I muted the notifications, and I've kept them that way ever since. It saves me so much anxiety and hyperfixation. Like I can close the app and feel like I'm done with the app. Like for however long it is, if it is closed, I am not hearing from it. I'm not seeing a dang thing until I willingly open that app.
Yeah, I think my phone has been in do not disturb mode since like 2017. And I am literally that embodiment of that meme of goes to theater. Theater tells you to turn turn your phone on silent mode, and I still check it anyway, even though it's been on silent mode since like I got it. But yeah, it's just it's nice to just be able to step away from it. So it's a fun, chaotic type of thing. But it can be like I watched several people who were running campaigns at the same time that I did, just struggled. And I'm like, I was very, very, very lucky that I was able to, for a first time campaign, be able to get the first one funded, as quickly as I did actually get it funded at all. But yeah, having to be able to step away from it and work on other projects, which I have so many that I could be focusing on in the interim, because I'm already planning my next one for July, which I already have. I already have the whole campaign like set up on Kickstarter, and it's ready to launch it whenever I need to go live. So I have plenty of other things to keep me distracted.
I think, obviously, as long as you don't overdo it, I think it's pretty healthy to do it, because that way, because I feel like it's very hard, right? If you're a creative and you have everything you've done, your life's work or something you're very proud of, you put everything on the line for that one project and it doesn't get funded, it doesn't work out, whatever it is, right? It's absolutely devastating, and rightfully so. But you know, if you have other projects that you know, hey, if this doesn't work out, obviously I'm gonna put my heart and soul to this thing, but if it doesn't work out, I've got other things to do that can kind of help with that devastation and that like heartbreak of your project not getting funded. But yeah, I know so many people that, yeah, like they've, you know, even people that have run the same Kickstarter twice and it hasn't gotten funded. I'm like, God, like what the heck? And it looks like really great work. And I'm just like, it rips my heart apart. And I'm not even the creative. I can only imagine what it's like for them.
Yeah, that's why I was like, because my next one is going to be to try to self-publish an isolation-focused eco-horror novella. So it is very botanical. It's very like small. There's only 2 characters, so it's like a very small, like tight-knit story. And it's one of those like, yeah, I could send this to a publisher, but I have 2 endings, so I want to have control over it, so I want to self-publish it. But if I were to try, I do have done that as my like first Kickstarter and had a goal of like, again, like I was saying, to print it like $5,000 as a goal and then put all of this work and time into it and not get funded, it would have been devastating. So now the fact that I'm going to have a few under my belt, so that even if it doesn't get funded, it's like, well, there's other platforms I can try to do it, or, you know, I can, you know, publish it myself and hope that I get the money to, you know, make that money back. You know, there's options to do it, but for that first one, it's like, yeah, that it's so hard to sit there and just watch the timer and wonder what's gonna happen.
But the eco horror and stuff, I think that's actually really well timed, just considering, you know, with even the main publishers and comics and stuff, right? Like Poison Ivy's kind of having her renaissance, which is fantastic. I'm here for it. It's DC's best book on shelves right now, in my opinion. Swamp Thing has been coming back a little bit. He's getting his own show, I think he's supposed to, from DC, which is pretty cool. That got announced. Like people, we're into the eco horror stuff. Like, and there's a lot of like horror books from Image and stuff they're coming out with those vibes, and like Boom. So I think it's good timing for you as well.
That's my main genres are space operas and eco horror. I actually have 3 different eco horror novellas. Nice. And because that's just the thing is, like, again, I love my plants, and I love that kind of like the way that like the botanical horror type of aspect to it. And so I think this one's going to be like Luke from Comic Book Yeti actually read it and gave very good like feedback on it. It's like, okay, this one sounds really good, which is going to be great. But yeah, it's a nice, you know, it's a different and unique take on horror that's not used very often. But I think it's like, it's so like broad of a thing, because you can have the weather, you can have the plants, you can have earth things like dryads and things like that. Jamie Lee Curtis is launching a graphic novel called Mother Nature that is an eco horror comic book that was something she's been wanting to write since the 80s, and she's finally getting the chance to do it, and it's coming out this summer, and I am so excited.
I had no idea. And Jamie Lee Curtis? What?
Yeah, it's her story, and she's had it like in her head since like her late teens, early 20s, and she's like, I've been trying to write this, and now is a good time to do it. And it's called Mother Nature, and I'm stoked. It's gonna be really good.
Get on that Jamie Lee Curtis train now. Choo choo all the way there. That is so cool to hear. Well, I'm excited, guys. You just got the inside scoop. That's gonna be Elle's next project. So if you want that to happen, you should probably back this project. So R-PUNZEL comes out through Kickstarter March 19th. The campaign's out. The links will be in the description below. Be sure to go back it, y'all, so that we can get these really cool stretch goals and get that Beauty and the Beast story, because I want that story, guys. I'm going to be greedy and say I want that story. So it can't all be me, though, because I do not have like $3,000 to donate to a campaign myself. So like we all gotta get in on this.
This is true. I do have some really cool like exclusive like limited time tiers. I've got one called the Mother Load that will let you, whoever backs it gets to name Bandit and Ratchet ship in the story.
I love that.
Another one that is 2 people can submit their names or like loved ones' names to have the guards at the end of the story named after them. So I have a couple of like really fun like little exclusive tiers for that are, you know, like very limited. Like there's only 3 of those, so I can't write 7,000 guards into a story and make it work. But yeah, so it's got some of those fun little like exclusive quick tiers and fun rewards and things like that. And I'm excited to get that Beauty and the Beast thing, you know.
Yeah. I love it. I love those options too. Like, who doesn't want to name a ship? Like, a ship's name is everything. That's like one of the coolest things you can get to name is a ship.
Yeah, I thought that would be kind of like a fun. I was like, I want to do something fun and interesting. I was like, oh, what else can I do? I was like, oh, they need a name for their ship, so let's have somebody like help me pick a fun futuristic fairy tale name for the ship. So
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, anything else about the Kickstarter or, about R-PUNZEL you wanted to share before we get out of here tonight?
No, I think that's pretty much about it, because you can't talk about too much without spoiling the whole story.
That's true. And you guys don't want this spoiled. It's such a fun story. It's such a good adventure. It's such a joy to read. So, be sure to check it out. Because I have read it and I really enjoy it, y'all. So it's approved by me. I know I'm not like Angela Bassett or anything, but I approve it. So hopefully that's a good sign to you all.
Yeah, and again, if you've seen Tangled or you've seen Into the Woods or you like the original Broadway show or just fairy tales in general, there's lots of fun little like subtle Easter eggs peppered throughout that make it fun for longtime fans of fairy tale stories. So
yes, and it reminded me a lot. I think I said this. I think it's gonna be on the Kickstarter page, maybe not. But I wrote a poll quote after I read it because I enjoyed it so much, and I compared it to Big Hero 6. So it really gave me a lot of those just really sweet. And again, that it has those family friendly vibes. It has that mix of adventure, but also family and love are the center of it, and it's just very wholesome. So I think you guys will really enjoy that.
It also has a nice itty bitty little bit of like horror to it. So it'd be a really good gateway horror if you have somebody who's like, oh, want something a little bit tense and a little bit scary, but nothing that's gonna like make you have the lights stay on for the rest of the week too. So it's fun, it's adventurous, it's got a little bit of tenseness to it. It's got murder bots. It has the right amount of thrill to it. That's the thing for me too, is that I'm not big on big horror, especially not in film or TV, because I can't handle jump scares. My anxiety, it's not fun. It's not haha for me. But I really like it in comics and in stories because it reads differently. It doesn't scare the living shit out of me and that my heart's going to die. It just psychologically freaks me out, which I can handle that. Like, I'm scared of myself sometimes. That's fine. Aren't we all?
Honestly, nowadays especially. Well, thank you so much, Al, for coming back on. I'm super excited for this project. Please plug yourself away. I know you have a Patreon as well. We want to get people on board with.
I have a Patreon. It is Alicia Davidson Author. It's ALYCIA. I found out that because my Patreon is considered NSFW, you can't search me in the search bar. I have been shadow banned by Patreon.
Wow.
So you actually have to type in patreon.com and then / Alicia Davidson Author, or you can actually, for some reason, Google search Patreon Alicia Davidson Author, and it'll take you to that. I have you can't search it in Patreon, but you can search Patreon on Google and find it.
That's so weird. Like, talk about the weirdest shadow ban. Like,
yeah, I know.
You gave a ban across the board. Not saying they should have, but like, okay, I guess.
Yeah, it's very strange. But I have a slice of life meets soft sci-fi web novel titled The Wayward Souls of Avalon. I have another one in the works called Lonely Planet Hotel that I would love to get started once I hit a certain number of patrons, because it takes a lot for me to edit and format and do all that stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%.
I am the webcomics and manga editor for Comic Book Yeti. You should go check out Comic Book Yeti.
Yeti!
Fun comic book stuff. I actually have a full review of Bicycle Boy somewhere in the abyss of my archives if you're interested in learning more about that beautiful, wonderful webcomic series. I exist. So.
And you do it well. Good job existing, Al. Full kudos, because it's hard. I mean, seriously, like, I know I said that slightly sarcastic, but I keep dropping shit and I keep wanting to pick it up. Do you ever like drop things while you're in the middle of something and it's killing you not to pick it up, but you're like, it's gonna look weird if I pick it up? I do it sometimes. I'm trying to be better today though. Well, thank you again for coming on, Al. Everybody, I'll make sure the Patreon link and all that is in the description below as well, because they cannot shadow ban me having the link, so take that, Patreon.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, be sure to go back it, y'all, and be sure to keep a lookout for July for the eco horror coming out from Hal. It's going to be great. Back to Patreon. Read Bicycle Boy. I mean, this sounds like a lot of homework, but it's not. Just click on like 4 things in the description below, and your homework is done. You're done.
It's not a lot. It's the nice thing about the internet is we have links, and it takes 1 click, and then you're there.
Yes. And then, I mean, honestly, the first one takes the longest, but that's the best one because you get to back a great project, and then you get a great story. So why would you not want to click 5 times for that?
Exactly. And again, it's like we have cool stuff coming out, cool stretch goals. I have a really great team. You'd make my sister so happy. She put so much work into her little picture. So It'd be great.
I love it. I love it. Well, thanks again, Al. Thank you to Nerdy Neighbors for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. All that really cheesy but super important stuff that helps the channel grow, and to check out Al's stuff, of course. And we'll see you guys next time in the Nerdy Neighborhood.